of Management Studies, Delhi. We look forward to her synthesizing the complex themes of today's presentations into a cohesive and effective dialogue. We also have Suraya as the rapporteur for this session, and Yati will be serving as the technical assistant. I request the chair and the presenters to please note that the time for presenting the paper is 10 minutes. After every presentation, we will have a short question-answer round. Now, with the permission of the chair, I would like to invite the first presenter for this session, Rajshree Gautam and Dr. Rimika Singhvi from Department of English Literature and Language, IIS, Jaipur. The paper they will be discussing with us today is titled Nature, Narrative, and the Numinous, Sacred Agents to Rajasthani Folk Tradition. Over to you.
Hello. Can you just give me a minute to settle in? Thank you.
Meanwhile, I'll just say a quick hello to everyone here. Thank you to the organizers for providing a platform to young researchers, young folklorists, in fact, to present their ideas. So it's a joint paper. Rajshree is working for doctoral work under my supervision, and she'll be presenting, and then together after the presentation, we'll defend it jointly. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for that introduction, ma'am. Can you see my PPT?
Not yet, Rajshree. Have you shared the screen?
Just a minute. Can you just give me one more minute, ma'am? I'm so sorry.
I think one of the participants advising to choose entire screen, so maybe that will help. Oh, there it is. Yes, Rajshree, it's come on now. I think you can begin.
Hello, I'm so sorry for all of that confusion. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I'm Rajshree Gautam, research scholar at IIS deemed to be university. And I'm here co-presenting this paper with Dr. Rimika Singhvi, professor at IIS deemed to be university. We're extremely glad to be here. And for this question, before we go ahead, I would like to say that the present paper is a work in progress growing directly out of my doctoral fieldwork on Rajasthani folk belief systems. So the ideas offered here are preliminary and an attempt to think rather through the material than arriving at conclusion at the present moment. So I actively invite any feedback, critique, and suggestions from all. So our paper, Nature, Narrative, and the Numinous, Sacred Agents in Rajasthani Folk Traditions, asks an important question, which is that in Rajasthani folk cosmologies, what makes something sacred? And our answer is that the landscape itself. So the central thesis of our paper here is that in Rajasthani folk traditions, nature is not a backdrop to the sacred. It is an agent in deification itself. We are not saying that, of course, that nature symbolizes the divine, We're saying that natural entities, whether it be serpents, trees, water bodies, soil, the land itself, actively participate in the process through which human figures become deified or become deities. So this makes three moves on our end. It goes beyond the nature-culture binary and challenges the anthropocentric models of sacred geography and reframes deification as a relational co-production, something that happens between humans, non-humans, and the very act of storytelling itself. And so our in conceptual anchors are, we draw on four pillars, which is indigenous relational ontologies, human, non-human entanglements, sacred geography as narrative projection. So what we are saying here is that the sites are made through repeated storytelling. It is not as if that it's a pre-given condition. So it happens over time to storytelling and not it's not a condition. So numinous becomes relational. It's not descending from above, but it is coming from within the Rajasthani cosmology overall. So the deified figures we are looking at were primarily Babuji, Gogaji, Tejaji, Bhombana, and some regional Bhomiyas. So their divinity do not emerge from this Brahmanical sanction of sorts or some sort of theological degree. Rather, it emerges from landscape entanglement. Gogaji is inseparable from the serpent world that he's worshipped in. And Bhumiyas are extremely bound to the land that they are protecting. So everything is territorial. So these deities are local in the deepest sense because their power cannot be separated from the particular ecologies they are alive in, I would say. Going ahead, when we look at sacred sites as agents, these sites, orans, khejri trees, water bodies, crossroads even, they are typically marked as symbolical markers in mainstream religion. But our argument here is that they are narrative generators. So the khejri tree appears across multiple folklores as a witness, as an oath-taking site, as a protector. It is not just in the story, it is rather doing something important and crucial in the story. It's not a side character, it is the character, the story revolves around it. So the deities and the nature they are existing in are completely inseparable because they sustain each other. So one of the main dimensions that we wanted to work on was nature as a co-actor rather than a side piece. So in Gogaji's narrative, the serpent is a sovereign presence in itself. It acts, it chooses, it punishes on its own accord. It's not defined by something else. So most strikingly, the earth and soil in Rajasthani folklore and folk worship are treated as possessing memory. The land remembers what's happened on it. The site of sacrifice retains its power, not because the humans choose to remember it, but because of its own sacrosity. So the landscape is grammatically active in the storytelling. It's not a passive being, rather it's a co-actor, is what we are saying. Another dimension that we focused on was that these narratives are encoded in ecological knowledge within community memory. So the idea of grazing ethics and water preservations, even though these are very 21st century terms to us, it has been part of Rajasthan's ecology and folk knowledge for ages now. And this is not an environmentalism in the modern political sense. It is embedded ecological rationality. It's a knowledge woven so deeply into the narrative and belief that it becomes inseparable from the community as well as the deities that those communities might be serving. So another dimension that we really wanted to focus on, and we will use this as a case study, is the case of Om Banna, Bullet Baba. And he's the most striking example of contemporary audience for this sort of conversation, because he died on the Pali-Jodhpur highway, and Om Singh Rathore, then he rode a motorcycle, a Royal Enfield Bullet. So his Royal Enfield reportedly started turning up to the death side despite removal after the collision. It was enshrined, and today it is worshipped by thousands. So what matters here is that the motorcycle itself it's been absorbed as a sacred agent. And it's rather striking thing, because it's one thing to assort these things to trees and so on, other things. But a bike, a modern technological means of transportation, has been absorbed into a Rajasthani cosmological order. And that's truly incredible, that sacred geography and what we consider sacred is constantly changing. And that brings us to this rather important point that we want to make, that if a machine can hold power, it's a strong enough argument to make that in Rajasthani sacred epistemologies, sacredness is adaptative. It's not fossilized. It has not stopped evolving. It's constantly evolving as per the need of the people and of the community. So it's a rather interesting example, a case study. Moving towards the end of my presentation, we wanted to do really this one thing, that we want to break the Western frameworks that operates on this nature versus culture binary. Nature is raw material and religion is what humans do to it. But Rajasthani folk cosmologists and folklore operates on a relational continuum, that where humans and non-humans are in a symbiotic relationship. They're not separate from each other. The sacred here is neither purely natural nor supernatural. It is numinous, it is eminent, it is relational to itself. And it arises from within the mesh of a relationship of non-human, human, as well as the storytelling part of it. And to conclude my presentation, this is what we are trying to say, that nature narrates and the landscape will remember. The deities emerge through this entanglement. That the Rajasthani cosmology, it's not what's above the earth matters. It is something that's rising from the ground. And that's why it's really, nature is the sacred agent that holds true. I would also like to say that this research, through this research, we're trying to show how folk narratives systems articulate these very sophisticated epistemologies that often, before even Western theory arrived, Rajasthani people were looking at. So it also carries this urgent relevance that as orans and a lot of sacred habitats are being destructed for extractive developments, what we are losing as a community is not just ecology, it is narrative infrastructure in itself. So you cannot tell these stories. These communities cannot exist without this place. Thank you.
Thank you for that insightful research. Are there any questions? I hope I'm audible.
If you're audible.
Yes, you are.
So if there are no questions, shall we move to the next presenter? All right, we'll take the questions later. I would now like to call Jigyasa Arya, the next presenter. She is an undergraduate student from Christ University, And the topic for their paper is The Performativity of Gali Geet. Is ritual abuse really empowering women? Over to you, Jigyasa. Jigyasa, are you there? All right, we'll move on to the next presenter.
Hello, I guess you are following the first schedule that was given. I guess that the new one, the moderated one, has been already published. So please follow
Yes.
that. Because after Rajshree Gautam, it was me, Amrita Mishra, according to the latest schedule.
Okay, I'll just check again.
Okay, okay.
Right, so I have the updated schedule. Sorry for the delay and the confusion. The next presenter is Amrita Mishra and Professor Sujay Kumar Mandal. They are from Kalyani University, and the paper they're going to present is titled A Comparative Analysis of Durga-pat, Bishnupur Patachitra, Jamkuri Patachitra, and Kuchiakol Patachitra. Over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Myself, Amrita Mishra. I'm doing my research work in folklore, of the supervision of Professor Dr. Sujay Kumar Mandal. Today, I will be presenting my paper that is a comparative analysis of Durga-pat, Bishnupur Patachitra, Jamkuri Patachitra, and Kuchiakol Patachitra. So I would like to share my PPT with you all.
Amrita, is your voice audible to everyone, or is the network a bit lost from your end?
Yes, ma'am.
I think there is some network problem from your end.
Amrita, your voice is breaking a bit. Please check your network connection.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, let's move on to the next presenter. We'll come back to Amrita. I request Madhavi Chandran from Alliance University, Bangalore, to please take the stage. The paper they are going to present is titled The Somatic Epistemology of Devotion, Indian Traditional Dance as a Repository of Bhakti-centered Knowledge Systems.
Namaskaram. A very good morning. I hope you all can see my presentation slide. Hello. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, you are audible and visible. Please go ahead.
So a very good morning, everyone. Today, I want to challenge the notion that Indian classical dance is merely a form of visual decoration or entertainment. Instead, I propose that it is a semantic epistemology, a structured, disciplined body of knowledge where the human body serves as the primary archive. The Bhakti movement of 6th to 17th century was an epistemological revolution that challenged the existing spiritual authority, which was gate-kept by the complex Sanskritic rituals and hereditary priesthood. This system made access to truth contingent upon mastering historic Sanskrit texts and correctly performing complex sacrifices, that is the yajnas, thus marginalizing women, Shudras, and the non-privileged caste. Bhakti democratized worship by shifting the focus from external ritualism to experiential inner realization. It replaced elite scripts with vernacular poetry, like saints like Kabir, Mirabai, the Alvas, and music, the Kirtans, Bhajans, making profound spiritual ideas instantly accessible to everyone. Crucially, it redefined the body as the site of knowledge, making devotion a lived reality rather than mere ritual obedience. The movement championed the idea that direct personal love for the divine, regardless of caste, gender, or scriptural knowledge, is the best path to freedom, establishing a spirituality focused on inner experience and that is open to all. To understand dance as a knowledge system, we examine Bharata's Natya Shastra and Abhinava Gupta's Abhinava Bharati. The Natya Shastra, the foundational text of Indian dramaturgy, is classified as the fifth Veda, the Panchama Veda, positioning dramatic performance as a sacred, authoritative practice equal to the tradition of four Vedas. This fifth Veda is a synthetic art that integrates three core concepts: the philosophy, tattva or darshana, the spiritual and ethical wisdom from the Vedas and the Upanishads, gestures and movement, abhinaya and nritta, the systematic body language and expressions conveying emotions and narrative, music and sound, the Sangeeta and Vachika, the vocal, instrumental music, rhythm, and poetic speech. By combining these, the Natya Shastra presents the dramatic experience as a pedagogical tool, a means for moral instruction and spiritual upliftment, especially for those traditionally excluded from the Vedic study. It teaches dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, the four purusharthas. Performance is an epistemic design, a structure that creates and transmits knowledge. Elements like space, narrative, codified gestures, the mudras that we use, and the emotional theory, the rasa theory, form a system that imparts truth and offers a transformative knowing experience, validating art as a genuine path to understand the reality. At the philosophical heart of the Natya Shastra lies the doctrine of rasa, one of the most sophisticated aesthetic theories ever articulated in any civilization. The term rasa, meaning the essence, taste, or relish, denotes not a raw emotion, but a transmuted aesthetic experience that arises in the cultivated spectator, that is the sahridaya, through the performer's embodied art. The mechanism by which this transition occurs is described by the great 10th century Kashmiri philosopher Abhinava Gupta through the concept of sadharanikarana, literally universalization. This process describes the alchemical journey by which a private, particular emotion, a bhava, rooted in the individual psyche of a character or a devotee, is elevated through the formal structures of performance into a collective, impersonal aesthetic relish, rasa, shared by the entire assembly. What makes this framework profoundly epistemological rather than merely aesthetic? Is it instance that rasa is a form of knowledge? Abhinava Gupta explicitly equates the experience of rasa with Brahmaswada Sahodara, the twin brother of the relish of Brahman. In other words, the aesthetic experience generated by a dance is not a distraction from the truth, but an avenue towards it. The body in performance becomes a crucible in which emotion is purified into understanding. Western epistemology has long privileged the archive as a textual entity, the library, manuscripts, and database. But the Indian classical dance traditions compel us to recognize a fundamentally different archival modality, the body as a living repository of knowledge. This is what we term as somatic knowledge. Knowledge that is stored not in documents, but in muscle memory, the breath patterns, and the geometrics of the movement that we have been transmitted across centuries through bodies of practitioners. Semantic knowledge is not reducible to just muscle memory in the mechanistic sense. It encompasses a rich, multi-layered epistemic content, philosophical content encoded in gestures, mythological narratives, preserved in choreographic sequences, theological principles embedded in spatial patterns, and even meditative states cultivated through rhythmic discipline. What occurs in a Gurukulam is better described as the kinesthetic starswar, a process in which the Guru communicates embodied knowledge through the body using their own physical form as the primary pedagogical text. The student does not simply copy movements. They absorb through sustained physical proximity and practice an entire way of being, a particular quality of breath, a specific relations to the gravity, and understanding of emotional truth that can only be transmitted somatically. If the body is an archive, then Abhinaya, the expressive dimensions of Indian classical dance, is its language. Abhinaya is conventionally translated as expression, but this translation conceals its deeper function as a semiotic system of extraordinary density and precision. Through the four modes of Abhinaya, Angika, Vachika, Aharya, and Satvika, the dancer communicates complex philosophical, theological, and narrative content using the body as a living sign system. The diverse tapestry of Indian classical dance traditions serve as a profound repository of ancient knowledge system in which the body is not merely a vessel for aesthetics, but a primary instrument for spiritual and philosophical inquiry. The ways in which the three distinct South Indian traditions, Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, and Mohiniyattam, embody these complex knowledge systems are illustrated below. Bharatanatyam, they embodied surrender and complete spiritual discipline. In Kuchipudi, they adopt narrative pedagogy and metaphysical immersion. And in Mohiniyattam, they adopt a meditative internality and inward absorption. This is out of my personal experience. India's National Education Policy 2020 represents a watershed moment for the recognition of art-based knowledge systems within formal education. For the first time in modern Indian education policy, the National Education Policy explicitly calls for the integration of Indian knowledge system into mainstream curricula and advocates for a holistic, multidisciplinary approach to learning that transcends the rigid silos of colonial-era educational structures. This policy environment creates an unprecedented opportunity to advance what we propose as the Bhakti semantic framework, a structured pedagogical model that repositions Indian classical dance not as a peripheral extracurricular activity, but as a core epistemic discipline. To conclude, dance is not merely art. It is an embodied archive, a living repository of philosophical, theological, and cultural knowledge that has been transmitted through bodies across millennia. To study dance is to study how India has known itself. This presentation, I have argued for a fundamental reorientation in how we understand the relationship between the body, knowledge, and devotion in Indian intellectual tradition. The classical dance forms of India are not cultural artifacts to be preserved in museum-like conditions, nor are they soft subjects unworthy of serious academic attention. They are sophisticated epistemological system, complex, rigorous, and theoretically dense modes of knowing that have sustained and transmitted some of the deepest insights of Indian civilization for over 2000 years. A call to action. Let us move beyond the colonial epistemic hierarchies that have marginalized embodied knowledge. Let us try to recognize that when a dancer's feet strike the earth in rhythm, when her hands sculpt meaning from empty air, when her eyes speak volume that no text can contain, knowledge is being created and transmitted, and it is preserved. The semantic epistemology of devotion is not a relic of the past. It is a living, breathing, dancing testament to the fullness of human understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhavi. Your research brilliantly recontextualized Natya Shastra as a comprehensive epistemological architecture rather than a mere theatrical manual. Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Meanwhile, Amrita Mishra, are you ready now? I hope your network connection is.
It's a beautiful paper. It's a
Thank
beautiful
you, sir.
paper
Thank you, sir.
that, there's quite a lot of potential and precision. So I think, Madhavi, you should work on it. Okay.
Yes, sir. My
Yeah.
PhD paper is on this only. How bhakti is affected
Wow.
and how it can be implemented in dance.
Okay.
Amrita Mishra, are you there?
Yes, am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Over to you. So now Amrita Mishra and Professor Sujay Kumar Mandal from Kalyani University would present their paper titled A Comparative Analysis of Durga-pat, Bishnupur Patachitra, Jamkuri Patachitra, and Kuchiakol Patachitra. Over to you.
Okay. Is the PPT visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So my paper, as I told earlier, is a comparative analysis of Durga-pat, Bishnupur Patachitra, Jamkuri Patachitra, and Kuchiakol Patachitra. To proceed, firstly, I will talk about the Mallabhum.
You can go slideshow. Sorry, I'm sorry, Mallika. You can go slideshow if you
Yes.
want. PPT.
Yes,
Rita,
I'm
do
sharing
slide.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it visible?
Is it?
It's
It is
visible.
but like it is not visible in the full form, I think, or is it only the green?
Okay, let me fix it. Please give me 1 minute.
I think, sir, she's doing it from mobile. Therefore, the
Yes,
screen is smaller.
yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
maybe.
ma'am.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
Yes,
Go
you
ahead.
may.
That's fine. That's
Okay, so yeah, so this paper focuses mainly on the Mallabhum. Mallabhum is the historical area in West Bengal's Bankura district that is focused on modern day Bishnupur. It was
Excuse
once
me,
the
ma'am.
land of.
Ma'am, your
Yeah,
screen is not visible. I believe you've turned off the screen sharing.
no, I haven't.
But your PPT isn't visible, Amrita. So can you just reshare it? Malika, ma'am, is it visible to you? Can you see that? No. Yeah.
Now
So
it
I
is.
yeah,
believe
now it's
Now
now
it
it
fine.
is.
Great. Go ahead, please.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so Mallabhum was once the land of Mallos, that is the Malla dynasty that dominated the area for about a millennium. In modern days, Mallabhum refers to modern day Bakura and Bishnupur district. So Patachitra, to proceed, I will firstly talk about Patachitra. Patachitra is one of the vibrant Bengali folk art traditions. And we all know that folk art is the structural artistic expression of the folks and their traditional collective consciousness. Bengali folk art is also one of those distinctive expressions. And through this, through Patachitras, the pot makers that are in Bengali, they are called Potua. They uh, they tell stories. So this is a narrative form. As well, it is a visual form. So both Patachitra is the mixture of both. So once it was less adored because of the lack of extravaganza in terms of the ingredients that were used and the techniques those were followed. But nowadays, it has gained the required fame all over the world. So my study area is Bishnupur and Jamkuri, Kuchiakol, and Bonbir village. Bishnupur is the historical town that is located in the eastern part of Chotanagpur Plateau, and it features wavy landscape, shal forest, and dry climate. The other village is Jamkuri. It falls under the Patrashar block, and it is located 20 to 30 kilometers east of Bishnupur. And the last village, Kuchiakol, is located in the Jaipur block. This place is very near to the famous Jaipur forest region. The primary data for my research work has been collected through field work, and I have collected required data through unstructured interview method and non-participant observation method, and I have followed purposive sampling method, and the photographs and videos were taken with the permission of the data providers and audios were recorded. So my objectives for this paper are: the paper will examine these three types of pot to find out the similarities and differences between them. This paper will also aim at finding out the historical background and cultural influences on them, and this will try to find out the external influences that has shaped these Patachitras. It will also talk about the Patachitra making procedure. So, firstly, I will talk about the Bishnupur pot, the iconographical description. As you can see, that it is 3 feet tall and 2 feet in width, and the two upper corners are blank. And there are in the top, and the middle, it is.
Sorry to interrupt, Amrita. Are you sharing the screen with us? Because
Yes, I am.
you are describing something like, I think you are sharing a visual, but it is not visible to us. Like
I
this.
am sharing actually, but there is some problem, I guess. Give me one more minute. Is it visible now? Hello?
Yes, visible.
Okay. So this is the Bishnupur Patachitra. It is divided into in 8 parts or boxes. On the top there is Mahadev and Nondi and Vringi, his biggest disciples, and the ox that is his mount. And the biggest box is for Durga Ma, and you can already see that the soft and like the tone is not soft, the color, the pattern, nothing is more like the Bengali culture. So I will be discussing this after some times, that what kind of outer external influences have been shaped these Patachitras like this. And the next is Jamkuri pot. This is a Patachitra that is worshipped in the village called Jamkuri, and this pot is 2 feet in height and 1.5 feet in width, and the two upper corners are chopped off, like they are cut out. And the hexagonal pot contains 5 mandis with dome shaped like pigs. So you can see that the structures of the mandirs are not like mandirs. It's more like masjid, the domes. So this is the consequence of Mughal influences that was a historical matter. And the next one is Kuchiakol pot. Here, Kuchiakol, Bishnupur claimed Rajput ancestry, symbolically and culturally connecting their lineage to Rajasthan, a historical hub for Rajput political strength and warrior pride. So, Kuchiakol Jomindari and Purakonda Jomindari, they worshipped this pot in the time of Durga Puja in autumn, and their lineage is linked to Rajputs and Rajasthan. So Rajasthani influence is very prominent in this pot, and the painting and the technique or the use of color and everything. Influences. Firstly, the Rajasthani influence on this pot, that is Kuchiakol, the vibrant, rich color scheme, particularly from the areas like Mewar and Marwar, the rich reds, yellow, green, and blue strokes, the tradition of Rajasthani miniature painting, traditional Rajasthani miniature painting. And the stylized body posture and facial feature, like instead of more rounded Bengali pot, like the figures are more like Rajasthani's, almond shaped eyes, pointed nose, and serene frontal stare. And the panel division and ornamental borders are also like resembling the Rajasthani paintings. Also, the details of costume and ornaments, the shari draping, the palm shoe in the like, it is not visible in this photo that I have taken, but the Mahishasur is wearing a palm shoe, the Kartik is wearing a palm shoe, and he is wearing a Sherwani like dress. So this is linking it directly to the Rajasthani ornamentation and costume pattern. And now I will be talking about the Jamkuri pot. Mughal influence is very prominent in this pot. That is, the terracotta temples of Bishnupur displayed sophisticated ornamental elements, including arts, floral embellishments, and domed forms that were brought about the contact with Mughal artistic traditions. Okay, and the gradual assimilation of Parsi and Mughal cultural features resulted from the peaceful coexistence of Vaishnav Hindu tradition and the comparatively liberal Mughal court. So the mixture of Vaishnav Hindu tradition and the Mughal architecture and architectural pattern or painting pattern, or their cultural significant cultural influences have been very prominent in this pot. And the arches and domes in the architectural framework, the enhanced realism in animism and animals and figures, the layered composition of space, and the detail of costume and ornaments is prominent. And that is the Mughal influence. And now I will be talking about the pot making procedure. That is, in the very first stage, the potuas, or the one those make like the Patachitras, they create the paintings. They make the canvas. They prepare the canvas for painting Patachitra. To make the canvas of the pot, they use white layers of cloths and layer them with glue made of turmeric seeds. In Bengali, that is called tetul bijer atha. And the glue drains layer clothes, then get curled up. In the next step, the piece of cloth is kept under sky in night to make it soften down in dew, and that process is called om khawano in Bengali. The cloth then becomes smooth, and by the constant scrubbing with a stone, that is called ghuta. Then the artists make the ara of the pot. The community, they are who are making these pots for years now, throughout generations, they are called faujdar. Okay, and then they start with the sketch with pencil, which is called stiklano, and the process of putting color on the pot is known as borno makhano. Next, the characters and the decoration of the pot is done, that is called paglamo. And in the last step, the flowers, the borders are drawn, that is called parano. And in the course of making these pots, they never use any chemical ready-made colors or canvas or any tools that is used. They make the painting brush with the tail of squirrel or goat. And the colors are made with different natural objects like fruits, flowers, leaves, and soils. And the pots that they are making now, for like decorative purpose, they are using few ready-made colors and chemicals, but the pots that are being worshipped, they never use anything ready-made. They make it with natural objects. Thank you.
Thank you, Amrita. Are there any questions?
It was a very insightful and thoughtful, a very innovative kind of presentation, Amrita. So I will come back to you in the end. Perhaps I'll have some views on all of you. So especially Amrita. I wish to
Thank
share
you, ma'am.
some
But
of
I
the
was a
comments.
bit confused due to the unstable internet connection and
That is
also.
again, it is not a big issue, so I will discuss later. Fine,
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
about your presentation. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Tosha. Moving on, we have Just Cover Singh, my apologies, Just Cover Singh from Punjab University. They will be presenting their paper on the topic, The Dual Identity of the Londa, Analyzing Gender Performativity in Samdesh Bhatia's Bihar Ka Londa Nach.
Yeah, thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen. Uh, so is the presentation visible to everyone?
Yes, it is visible. You may
Yeah,
please go ahead.
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. So this presentation examines the intersection of folk tradition, subaltern identity, and also gender fluidity within the landscape of Indian folk theatre. And specifically, we will analyze the dual identity of the Londa, which is inherent in Bihar's Londa Nach. For those who might be unfamiliar with the social historical backdrop, Londa Nach is a tradition historically popularized in the early 20th century by the playwright and social reformer Bhikhari Thakur. He was often referred to as the Shakespeare of Bhojpuri literature. So the form emerged out of a specific socio-economic reality, the Videsiya culture, a culture that is defined by mass out-migration of men from rural Bihar to urban industrial centers like Calcutta in search of work. And because of strict patriarchal norms uh, that prohibited women from performing in public spaces, male performers, which were known as londas, stepped into inhabit a female persona on the stage. They embodied what is called viraha, or the agonizing pain of separation felt by women left behind in the villages. So the primary text of an analysis today is not a historical archive, but a recent digital ethnographic interview titled Bihar Ka Londa Nach, conducted by Sandesh Bhatia, who is on the right side in 2025. This document is invaluable because it provides a rare, unfiltered first person testimony from a veteran performer, Kumar Singh. And by centering Singh's voice, this paper or presentation argues that Londa Nach is not merely a costume based impersonation or a superficial theatrical masquerade. Rather, it is a profound psychological tradition and a vital subaltern space where the marginal performers actively negotiate identity. They resist social stigma and radically redefine traditional masculinity norms in deeply patriarchal rural region of Bihar and other states. To truly understand this depth of practice, we must examine the internal phenomenological shift that occurs within the performer. In Bhatia's interview, the dressing room, uh, which you're seeing the scenes from where the person is trying to do his makeup, is not simply presented as a mundane backstage area where a costume is applied, but as a sacred liminal threshold where the gendered self is actively dismantled and meticulously reconstructed. And when questioned about the internal experience of this physical transformation, Kumar Uday Singh, the performer in focus, theoretical categorization. Uday Uday Udita बन जाते हैं, meaning Uday does not remain Uday, he becomes Udita, his female counterpart. This linguistic shift is also very crucial, and by naming his female, feminine alter ego, Singh completes a psychological cleavage from his male identity. Udita is not merely a character that sings, directs, or plays. She is a distinct autonomous entity that has their own agency, their own persona that displaces the moment the makeup is applied and the ankle bells or ghungroos are tied. Singh further articulates this profound displacement to the metaphor of spiritual possession. He describes this performative impulse as Londa wala bhoot, the ghost of the Londa. In rural Indian consciousness, a bhoot or a spirit often represents an unfulfilled desire or a marginalized force that demands to be seen. Singh notes that upon donning the costume, मेरे अंदर एक महिला एक लड़की घुस जाती है. A woman, a girl enters inside me. It is here that Judith Butler framework of gender performativity becomes acutely relevant. Butler posits that gender is not an inherent biological internal truth, rather a phenomena produced by stylized repetition of act. For Singh, these stylized acts, the careful application of bright lipstick, the draping of the sari, the conscious adaptation of female grace and posture, do not hide the truth of his maleness. Instead, they actively manufacture the truth of his femaleness in that specific moment. So the act itself constitutes the reality. And crucially, this indigenous performance of gender differs significantly from the Western paradigm or the anthropologist Esther Newton, in their foundational work Western Drag Queens, observed that drag often employs camp to create an ironic dissonance between the performer and the role, deliberately highlighting the artificiality of gender to the audience. Singh's performance, however, is rooted in a lack of irony. It is a total earnest identification. He even admits to feeling a genuine romantic longing while in character, noting with poignant vulnerability that अगर हम लड़की रहते तो काश उसे शादी कर लेते. If I were a girl, I wish I could marry him. Singh does not merely imitate a woman for comedic effect. He channels a suppressed possibility of the self, entirely blurring the line between what is art and what is authentic being. So the sociological paradox now, however, while the internal transition is marked by spiritual and fluid liberation, it is smooth inside Udita or Uday, but the external reality of the Londa is governed by a rigid, often violent sociological paradox. Singh succinctly encapsulates this brutal dichotomy. Prison, that one receives applause but also receives abuse. So this phrase also exposes the hypocritical consumption of folk art in rural Bihar. Singh recounts the jarring, whiplash-inducing experience of exiting the stage. On the stage, he is hailed with cheers of "Wow" by captivated men. Yet the very next moment or the next morning, instead, he is greeted on the village street with derogatory remarks, emasculating slurs such as "Londva" or "Moga." As well, often London dominant caste. So the performer's body becomes a site of upper caste consumption and desire at night, only to be subjected to untouchability and social disgust in the morning or in the day. This also uh, oscillates precisely with the Victor Turner's concept of liminal identity, someone who is betwixt and between at the same time. Um on stage, Singh exists in a temporary state of communitas, whereas gender transgression is reversed as high cultural art. Yet the moment he steps off the stage, the patriarchal and caste-based society ruthlessly reasserts its boundaries and is marginalized for the very ambiguity that the audience just paid to applaud. And to navigate this severe hostility and psychological toll, Singh engages in a brilliant strategy of subaltern resistance. Sociologists like Batri Narayan has noted that marginalized communities often appropriate dominant culture symbols to assert their dignity in the face of erasure. We see this powerfully manifested in Singh's radical redefinition of Mardangi or of masculinity. In an agrarian society where masculinity is typically tied to physical strength, land ownership, and aggressive dominance as well, the Londa is viewed as a failure of manhood. Rather than accepting the social consensus that his cross dressing strips him of his masculinity, Singh detaches manhood entirely from the physical body itself and from biological essentialism as well. He elegantly relocates to the domain of ethical labor, honesty, and domestic responsibility. And when asked to define masculinity in the interview, he says that मर्दानगी वो है जो अपने कामों के प्रति ईमानदार हो. Masculinity is being honest to one's work. And this is a profound compartmentalization and an incredible subversion of patriarchal logic as well. By framing his public performance of femininity not as subversion of manhood, but as the rigorous, exhausting labor required to sustain his family, Singh uses the primary economic imperative of patriarchy, being a provider, to validate his stigmatized identity. The performance of the feminine, therefore, becomes the ultimate fulfillment of his duty as well. This aligns seamlessly with cultural theories what Ashish done the observation on the Indian self, suggesting that the inner and the outer lives of the colonized or subaltern subject can harbor distinct even contradictory identities, without resulting in psychological failure or collapse. Finally, it is essential to consider the medium through which this powerful testimony reaches us today. The landscape of folk theatre is also rapidly shifting in the current scenario, in the current epoch. Traditional patronage structures and village chapels in Bihar are vanishing, turning Londa art into also a rare art form. Uh, Londa art into a rare art form. Historically, a scholar such as Janendra Dost argues that Londa served the localized Videsiya culture. Today, the art form is undergoing a new kind of digital migration. The audience is no longer just the lowly migrant worker in Calcutta. It is the global viewer on digital platforms like YouTube. The performance has moved from the ephemeral village square to the permanent replayable digital archive. Sandesh Bhatia's ethnography also bypasses this prejudicial local gaze that views the performer merely as a social deviant. Instead, the camera lens frames Singh as a serious artist, a philosopher, and a custodian of heritage. Singh is acutely aware of this shift in power dynamics. During the interview, in the moment of a brilliant modern savvy, he instructs a young boy to look directly into the camera lens and subscribe, demonstrating a keen awareness of digital economy. In doing so, Singh reclaims narrative control as well. He utilizes the modern digital apparatus to validate his pre-modern art form, democrating his subaltern voice and speaking directly to the world without the heavy, often distorting mediation of traditional academic gatekeepers. And in conclusion, the figure of the Londa in Bihar's folk theatre has historically been relegated to the margins of both society and mainstream scholarly discourse. However, by centering the primary testimony of Kumar Uday Singh or Udita, it becomes undeniably evident that Londa Nach operates as a highly dynamic site of identity negotiation. It is this vital space where the rigid, oppressive binaries of gender are not just suspended but actively deconstructed as well. So ultimately, this digital preservation of this art form serves as a poignant reminder for these performances, gender fluidity, that it is not just an abstract academic theory or a clever theatrical device, it is a profound daily performance of survival, dignity, and resistance as well. Thank you so much. Here are some other pictures of Kumar Uday Singh or Udita. Some are from the interview and some are his previous photos as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jaskavar Singh. As somebody who has watched the video that you referenced, it was really interesting to have received a critical analysis of the same. Are there any other questions? All right, so moving on, we have Shagun Chaudhary from Government College of Education, Chandigarh. The paper they're going to present is titled The Hermit Republic, Vernacular Sovereignty, Linguistic Isolation, and the Theocratic Democracy of Malana Village.
Am I audible and is my screen visible?
Yes, you're audible and visible. Please go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to take you on a journey to a place that challenges our modern understanding of democracy, law, and society. We are going to explore Malana, a remote village in the Himalayas, often called the Hermit Republic. We'll uncover how this tiny village has managed to exist as a sovereign nation within a nation, resisting the Indian state, not with guns, but with silence, secrecy, and a sacred belief in their own purity. Let's ground ourselves in the geography first. Malana is not just remote, it is historically fortress-like, situated at an altitude of over 2,600 meters in the Parvati Valley of Himachal Pradesh, India. It was for centuries accessible only by treacherous mountain treks. This physical isolation allowed it to develop into a unique theocratic republic. Unlike the rest of India, which follows the constitution, Malana is guided by the absolute word of the local deity, Jamlu Rishi. My objective today is to analyze Malana as a site of vernacular sovereignty. This is a fancy term, but it simply means how do ordinary people use their daily habits, like their language, clothes, their rituals, to build a wall against the outside world. We'll look at the conflict between the ancient indigenous knowledge systems and the crushing weight of our modern infrastructure. We'll fundamentally be exploring a paradox. How does a village that wants to stay completely isolated simultaneously run a global economy centered on the world famous Malana cream cannabis? Now, to understand Malana, we need the right lens. We are using three key ideas: vernacular sovereignty. Think of this as a grassroots independence model. It is not about signing treaties. It is about how the community uses strict social rules like not touching outsiders to maintain their freedom. Humble theory borrowed from scholar Dorothy Noyes. This approach tells us not to get lost in big abstract philosophies. Instead, we look at the humble details, how they count numbers, how they build houses, to understand their power. And lastly, decolonial perspective. Finally, we view Malana not as backward or primitive, but as a sophisticated epistemological territory. They have their own way of knowing the world that challenges our Western-centric ideas of what progress looks like. Now, every nation needs a story of origin, and Malana has a fascinating one. The most famous myth is the Alexander myth. If you ask a villager in Malana, they might tell you that they are the pure descendants of Alexander the Great's army. You see this in their claim to Greek-like features and a unique parliamentary system. Now, why does this matter? Whether it's historically true or not is not irrelevant. Functionally, it gives them an exotic pedigree. It validates their feeling that they are superior to outsiders and justifies their isolation. However, modern research such as the Indo-Mongolian Mongolian theory by Chering Dorje suggests their roots is actually much older, tied to prehistoric Tibeto-Burman tribes and the ancient Bonpo religion. But for the villager in Malana, the myth of Alexander is a shield that says, we are different, we are special, stay away. Now, one of the strongest walls Malana has built is invisible. It is their language, Kanashi. Now, Kanashi is a linguistic isolate. While every village around them speaks a dialect of Pahari and Indo-Aryan language, Malana speaks a Sino-Tibetan language. Imagine a single island of one language surrounded by an ocean of completely different language family. Now, this isn't an accident. Kanashi is unintelligible to their neighbors. They treat it as a secret language. It is forbidden to teach Kanashi to outsiders. Even the non-Rajput service castes who have lived in the village for decades are not allowed to speak it. By controlling their language, they control their reality. This is epistemological sovereignty, the right to define the world in your own words. Now, Kanashi is an oral tradition. It is not written, it is performed, and it reveals a completely different way of thinking, a different cognitive mapping. For example, their grammar is human-centric. They barely use gender for objects, only for people. But the most striking example is how they count. We use a decimal system with base 10. Kanashi uses a vigesimal system, which is base 20. If we ask a Malana elder to say the number 40, they wouldn't say 40, they would say twice 10. Now, this isn't just old maths. It reflects an ancient Himalayan logic used for trade and labor long before modern calculators arrived. It shows that the knowledge system is distinct and self-sufficient. Now, let us look at the government. Malana is often called the Athens of the Himalayas because of its democracy, but this is a theocratic democracy called the Hakima. The real ruler is not the prime minister, but the deity, Jamlu Rishi. The village council has two houses, the upper court, which includes the gur, the oracle. This is the most critical figure. When the gur enters a trance-like state, he becomes the voice of God. The lower court, this is the parliament consisting of the elected elders called Jesht. Now, here is the key point. A decision made by this council is final. It cannot be challenged, not even by the Supreme Court of India. To them, their court is the highest court. Now, how do they deliver justice? They don't use forensic labs or lawyers. They use trial by ordeal. When there is a dispute that humans cannot solve, they turn to the divine. A famous method is the poisoned sheep test. They take two sheep representing the two fighting parties, poison them and wait. The party whose sheep dies first loses the case because the god has judged them. To us, this might seem irrational, but to them, it reinforces the mental boundary against the Indian state. It offers immediate divine resolution, which they trust far more than the slow bureaucratic district courts of India. Now, Malana's sovereignty is also built into the physical village itself, what we call the vernacular ground. Look at the architecture. It's the cut kuni style, interlocking wood and stone, built entirely without metal nails because nails are considered impure. The village society is strictly stratified. It is inhabited mostly by Rajputs who see themselves as superior. The lower castes like blacksmiths and weavers live there, but they are excluded from the core rituals and the sacred language. They also practice strict endogamy. Over 93% of marriages happen within the village. If you marry an outsider, you are effectively exiled. You lose your community. They value biological purity over individual freedom. Now, the most visible barrier is the famous no-touch policy. In Malana, touch is not a greeting, it is a pollution. They have created an ontological firewall between the sacred village and the profane outside world. If you visit, you'll see signs warning you, do not touch. If you touch a person or a temple wall, you are fined 2,500 rupees to 3,500 rupees. Now, their mantra flips the Indian script. Instead of Atiti Devo Bhava, their attitude is Atiti Tum dur hi raho. Even money is exchanged by placing it on a wooden plank to avoid hand-to-hand contact. This keeps the global economy at arm's length, literally. Now, this brings us to the great economic paradox. Historically, Malana used hemp, cannabis, for utility to make ropes and slippers. But in the 1990s, everything changed. They learned to make high-grade hashish, now famous as Malana cream. In 1995, Malana cream won the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam. Suddenly, this hermit village became a global brand. Prices skyrocketed to 10,000 rupees for 10 grams. Now, here is the conflict. The NDPS Act of 1985 makes this trade a crime in India, but for the villagers, the plant is a gift from their god, Jamlu Rishi. So you have a livelihood that is criminalized by the state, but blessed by the deity. The walls of Malana are starting to crack under the pressure of the modern state. The biggest conflict is between oral geography and written bureaucracy. Malana claims land based on the deity's ancient borders. The state demands written title deeds. This came to a head in 2001 with the Malana hydroelectric project. The dam required roads and land. Because the villagers had no paper documents, they lost huge chunks of ancestral grazing land without fair compensation. This proves that vernacular knowledge is vulnerable in a world that demands standardized paperwork. Oral traditions are being erased. Now, the final threat is modern technology, what we call mediatization or the digital gaze. The internet, mobile phones, and YouTubers have put Malana in overdrive. Channels sensationalize it as India's hidden weed village, reducing the complex culture to a viral video about weird rules. Now, this is causing linguistic erosion. Young kids are watching Instagram and forgetting the twice 10 logic of their own language in Malana. But Malana is fighting back. In 2017, the council ordered all guest houses and restaurants to close. They banned modern vices like energy drinks and DJs. It was a radical attempt to reclaim their sacred space from the tourists. And now to conclude, Malana is a hermit republic. It uses a secret language, a divine government, and a wall of purity to shield its identity from the world. But it stands at critical crossroads. The greatest threat isn't just the road, it's the commodification of the heritage and the legal encroachment of the state. Our argument is this: preserving Malana is not just about saving some village, it is an act of epistemic justice. We must recognize that the sacred geography and spatial memory are legitimate forms of ownership. Malana's survival depends on a delicate balance, engaging with the 21st century without losing the sacred belief that has protected them for over 1,000 years. Thank you. Here are my references for this paper.
Thank you, Shagun. Your research was indeed insightful, for it effectively mapped that the Republic of Malana as being far more than a geographical accident, but a deliberate linguistic, legal, and social performance, and the need to preserve it as well. Are there any questions?
So nice to hear this, because I heard about it, but this is the first time I'm hearing a little bit of in detail. So nice. Yeah, nice paper, but some kind of critical analysis with much more data will justify Dorothy Noy's, humble theory. So that's what the researcher should do in future. This is what.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your remarks.
Can I ask the one question?
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. Shagun Chaudhary, right? Yeah, it's really a wonderful paper, Shagun. It's quite informative. I just want to know, because you have mentioned that when it comes, you have somewhere mentioned the people wearing the caps, right? The caps they have put on. I just wish to know, because if you look at the caps, they have a different variation of caps. Some caps are from Kullu cap, some from the Kinnauri cap, and some is turban. I just want to know whether it's a culture amalgamation, because the cap's origin itself from the district itself, some sort of a cultural exchange which highlight. Just wish to know this. And somewhere you have mentioned the religious dualism, wherein the deity is also there with the picture. Just wish to know, whether these practices are there in terms of it, or how.
Ma'am, about the caps, I did not make a mention about the caps. In Himachal, there is this tradition of wearing pahadi caps, and they vary from region to region. In Kangra, there's a different cap. In Chamba, there's a different cap. And so perhaps in the Kulu region, the cap is different. But that's not a very strictly followed rule that you have, since you belong to Kulu or you belong to Chamba, you have to wear the cap of your region. It's very fluid.
Yeah, I know you have not asked about it. Just wish to know, is there any, because if you look at the Malana village, it's very strict, and just wish to know, is there any influence over any district or any state influence you can see, like how we see in other cultures, we have a religious dualism in terms of Hinduism, Buddhism, other something like that. Do we find in Malana? That's what, just wish to know that.
All right. So the caps which are worn in Himachal, they are a mirror of the different dialects which are spoken in Himachal. So the Pahadi dialect, it has different varieties in Himachal. The Kangri dialect is different from the Mandyali. The Mandyali is different from the Chamba one, and hence similarly the caps are also different. But all in all, they look the same. The Pahadi cap. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving forward, I invite Srinanda CS from the Department of Indian Languages and Literary Studies, University of Delhi. The paper they would be presenting is titled Folklore, Memory and Social Media, a study of Vadakkan Pattukal in the Digital Age.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I am audible. Title of my paper is Folklore, Memory and Social Media, a study of Vadakkan Pattukal in the digital age. And it explores how Vadakkan Pattukal, the celebrated heroic ballads of North Malabar in Kerala, continue to circulate in contemporary digital spaces. Vadakkan Pattukal form a significant part of Kerala's oral folklore tradition, and the most prominent compositions of these ballads are Tachol Pattu, Putturam Pattu, which recount the lives of caregivers, a warrior community. Alongside tales of martial valor, the ballads also provide insight into gender roles, kinship structures, and the broader socio-cultural life of the period. Over time, these ballads have been reimagined across multiple narrative forms, including literature, cinema, performance traditions, and more recently, digital media. Scholars such as Andrew Perk, Trevor J. Blank, Alan Dundes, and Simon J. Browner have argued that digital media does not threaten folklore, but instead creates new spaces for its circulation and transformation. The presence of Vadakkan Pattukal on social media reflects this process
and shows traditional narratives continue to evolve within contemporary digital culture. Let me now briefly outline the methodology of the study. This study uses a qualitative approach, analyzing purposefully selected digital content on Vadakan Particle from YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, including performances, reels, fan edits, travel vlogs, and cultural events. Comment sections were also examined as site of participatory memory, highlighting themes such as nostalgia, intergenerational memory, identity, and debates around caste and gender. All usernames were anonymized and only publicly available materials was used. I will now briefly turn to the theoretical framework that guides this study. The starting point is the idea that memory is not simply a record of the past, but something societies actively reconstruct in the present. This perspective begins with sociologist Maurice Halbwachs, who introduced the concept of collective memory. Halbwachs argued that individuals do not remember the past in isolation. Rather, memory is shaped through social frameworks such as family, community, and institutions. Building on this idea, Jan Assmann and Alida Assmann developed a distinction between communicative memory and cultural memory. Communicative memory refers to everyday recollections shared within living generations, while cultural memory is preserved through text, images, rituals, and performances that stabilize meanings and transmit them across time. Another important contribution comes from Pierre Nora, who introduced the idea of sites of memory. Nora argues that modern societies often create symbolic places, text, or events that function as anchors for remembering the past, particularly when living traditions weaken. Anne Rickney later expanded this idea by emphasizing that memory sets are not static, but are continually reactivated and reinterpreted through new media and cultural practices. At this point, the concept most central to the study becomes relevant: folkloric memory, proposed by Errol Guillaume Goethe. Goethe suggests that folklore should not be understood simply as inherited tradition, but as a dynamic mnemonic practice through which societies reinterpret the past. Folkloric memory operates through process of selection, transformation, and recontextualization. Narrative elements such as heroes, motifs, and archetypes are repeatedly mobilized in new contexts to respond to the present social concerns. From this perspective, folklore does not preserve the past exactly as it was. Instead, it reconstructs the past in ways that remain meaningful to the present. This framework is particularly useful for understanding the circulation of Vadakan particle across time. The ballads have not survived as fixed tradition, but have been repeatedly reinterpreted through oral performances, print culture, cinema, and digital platforms. Digital media intensifies this process. Social media platform enable both deliberate act of remembrance, such as archival documentation and nostalgic storytelling, and more implicit forms of folkloric memory, where motifs and characters circulate casually through videos, memes, comments, and everyday references without any explicit intention to preserve tradition. Before turning to the digital sphere, it is useful to briefly look at how the ballads have historically circulated. Vadakan particle were historically transmitted through itinerant singers known as Panas. As M.K. Panikoti notes, many of these ballads were composed and performed by bards attached to aristocratic households, often celebrating the martial lineage of local families. Beyond such performances, the ballads also circulated within everyday agrarian life. They were sung during agricultural labor and communal gatherings. A major shift occurred in the early 20th century when the ballads entered print culture and certain versions became stabilized. Later, cinema played a major role in reviving them. Films such as Unni Archa and Tacholi Odayan, according to P.S. Radhakrishnan, reimagined balladic heroes as a symbol of regional pride and pride during a period when political integration happened in Kerala and a unified Kerala identity was being consolidated. Similar to cinema, Vadakan particles have been adapted to several literary retellings that centered on balladic figures. They appeared in novels, short stories, children's literature, and graphic narratives. Literary works also made notable changes to ballads as in cinema. For instance, Kadaktanad Madhavi Amma's novel portrays Pacholi Otenan as a morally purified hero, where Panniyur Basi's works depict a more complex figure marked by caste pride and internal contradictions. This shift shows that Vadakan Patukal have always moved across media. Their digital circulation today can therefore be understood as the latest phase in a long history of reinterpretation. In digital environment, Vadakan particle form what can be described as a multi-layered memory field where the ballots are archived, performed, debated, and reinterpreted. One important aspect is archival preservation. Organizations such as ARPO upload recordings of people singing the ballads in order to digitally document them. As Barbara Krishnbad Gimblet observes, the very technologies that threaten to displace oral traditions are also the instruments for preserving them. Beyond archival work, the ballads circulate through a wide range of participatory practices. Social media users upload singing ballads, short videos of lip singing or acting out scenes from Vadakan Pattu movies, videos of theyyams of balladic figures, snippets from Kalari training centers, and travel vlogs of visit to locations associated with ballads. One can also see images of children dressed as ballad figures, often in connection with fancy dress competitions. Through such practices, digital media becomes an active arena where cultural memories continually reactivated. Digital circulation also produces narrative mutation. Social media narratives often introduce simplifications or entirely new episodes. For example, a jewelry brand named after Unniyacha circulated a promotional video in which a young Unniyacha traps a thief. Although this episode is newly invented, it retains the central attribute associated with her courage. This illustrates how folkloric memory adapts within logic of popular culture and commodification. Another interesting phenomenon is the use of ballad characters such as Aromil Chegavar or Tacholi Odenan as usernames. Even when the accounts do not post folkloric content, the names function as symbolic markers of cultural affiliation, showing how folkloric figures operate as everyday identity markers. Digital spaces have also become arenas for caste discourse. While earlier literary and cinematic adaptations foreground certain heroes, social media has revived attention toward marginal figures such as Thevar Vellon, an oppressed caste warrior who defeated Otenan in a duel. Comment sections of the videos and posts that narrate his story often engage in discussions and attribute his historical neglect to caste hierarchies. This also demonstrates how digital circulations make spaces for marginalized narratives to enter the public discourse and be reinterpreted through social justice framework of the present era. Debates around Tiya and Irava identities similarly appear in online discussions. Tiyas and Iravas are historically related caste groups in Kerala who have long debated their social classification and shared origins. In comment sections, figures such as Aromil Chegavar and Unniyarcha are sometimes invoked as symbols of caste pride, with users claiming these heroes as representatives of their community's historical prestige and martial heritage. Arguments about Tacholi Odeyan's caste and mobilization of communal narratives around Unniyarcha's Nathapuram encounter with Muslim men position the folklore within a realm of contemporary identity politics. A video which is captioned Mappilamare Padam Padipicha Tiyatippennu, or the Tiya woman who taught Muslim men a lesson, reframes the popular story of a female warrior who defeated a group of men who attempted to assault her through explicit communal language that highlight the caste and religious difference as the primary interpretive frame. These discussions reveal how folklore becomes a resource through which contemporary identities and historical status are negotiated in digital spaces. Folklore scholars have long recognized this connection between tradition and identity. Laurie Hongo notes that folklore functions as a medium through which communities express collective identity. Gayatri Spivak similarly observes that identities may be strategically mobilized for recognition and power. while Alan Dundes suggests that folklore provides socially sanctioned ways to express tensions that may be difficult to articulate in everyday dialogue. Gendered memory also appears in digital representation. Unyarcha is frequently invoked as a model for female self-defense, yet visual representations often standardize her appearances according to dominant beauty norms. Male heroes, meanwhile, are often represented through hyper-masculine imagery shaped by contemporary visual culture. Media scholar Henry Jenkins' concept of participatory culture helps explain these dynamics. Drawing on the idea of textual poaching, Jenkins argued that audience actively reinterpret cultural texts rather than passively consuming them. This is especially visible in comment sections where users recall childhood memories of hearing the ballad from grandparents, watching related films, or performing them in school. Such nostalgic recollection illustrate how digital platforms sustain collective memory through everyday participation. At the same time, many digital interactions are not explicitly commemorative. Videos, memes, and casual references circulate without any deliberate intention to preserve tradition. A striking example of shifting narrative authority appears in discussions about Putturam Vittil Chandu. Some commenters suggest others the cinema Oru Vadakkan Veeragatha as the accurate version of the story, even though the film significantly reconfigures the balladic narrative by transforming Chandu, traditionally depicted as a villain, into a sympathetic protagonist. This shows how mediated adaptations can sometimes supersede oral tradition in shaping popular memory. So to conclude, taken together, these observations suggest that social media platforms function as a dynamic digital sites of memory. They generate network memory environment where archival presentation, narrative mutation, identity politics, nostalgia, and participatory engagement coexist. In this sense, Vadakkan Particle persists in the digital sphere as evolving fields of collective memory where the past is continually reconstructed in relation to present social realities. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. By examining the traditional ballads through the lens of social media, your research profoundly illustrated how digital platforms transform the static memory, or as you said, the marginalized figures, into a dynamic, viral oral tradition that can even resonate with a global audience. Thank you for that. Are there any questions?
It's a very interesting paper, and very precise paper. I have heard Srinandana's one of the paper a couple of weeks before, basing on the Vadakkan part only, but there's a Punyatangam. This is very interesting. So the terrain which you work and using, Azaman, memory, Jenkins, trying to analyze the digital media, the ever-growing, communities, etc., is very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for the remark. Moving ahead, now I invite Shabnam Khatun from Department of English, School of Humanities, Indira Gandhi National Open University. The paper they're going to present is titled Between Drumbeats and Domesticity, Gendered Knowledge in Santhal Folktales. Also, a
Good
request
afternoon, respected chair, distinguished scholars, and fellow participants. So today I'll be presenting my paper titled Between Drumbeats and Domesticity, Gendered Knowledge in Santhal Folktales. My paper examines how Santhal folktales function not merely as entertainment, but as living knowledge systems, particularly as gendered epistemologies shaped and transmitted by women within domestic spaces. So why Santhal folktales? The Santhals, one of the largest Adivasi communities in eastern India, possess a rich oral tradition that continues to shape collective identity and ethical life. And their folktales, recorded by scholars such as Paul Olaf Boarding, A. Campbell, Cecil Henry Bompas serve as invaluable archives of indigenous knowledge. And however, rather than treating these texts simply as ethnographic documentation, my paper reads them as epistemic sites, spaces where knowledge is structured, transmitted, and negotiated. I use the metaphor between drumbeats and domesticity to frame this inquiry. The drumbeat symbolizes the public sphere, ritual, festival, masculine performance, and collective authority. Domesticity represents the interior sphere, household space, caregiving, and storytelling, and traditionally associated with women. My central argument is that Santhal women's folktales articulate a gendered knowledge system that operates in this liminal space between public authority and private pedagogy. My analysis drawn upon three major theoretical frameworks. First, William Bascom's theory of folklore's four functions: entertainment, validation of culture, education, and social control. Second, Alan Dunde's symbolic interpretation of folklore, which suggests that folktales encode collective anxieties and tensions. Third, feminist folkloristics, which foregrounds women not merely as transmitters of tradition, but as narrative agents and interpreters. While Bascom explains how folklore validates culture, my paper asks whose culture is being validated and who controls the interpretive process. So this question becomes central when we examine gendered storytelling spaces. The public sphere, drumbeats, and masculine authority. In Santhal society, ritual life is deeply performative. The akhra or village dancing ground becomes the center of communal gathering. Drums such as the tumdak and tamak resonate during festivals, hunts, and rituals. These drumbeats symbolize visibility and authority. Folktales often mirror this structure. Male characters frequently appear as hunters, chiefs, ritual leaders, or travelers navigating forests and courts. They occupy external landscapes. However, many of these narratives also portray male authority as flawed or impulsive. Chiefs make unjust decisions, husbands act rashly, ritual specialists misinterpret omens. Through Alan Dunde's framework, we can interpret these depictions as symbolic expressions of collective anxiety about power. Public authority is visible, but not always morally superior. Thus, the drumbeat announces authority, but it does not guarantee ethical wisdom. Domestic space as vernacular classroom. If the drumbeat marks public power, domestic storytelling constitutes what I call a vernacular classroom. Within the household, women narrate stories during evenings, agricultural rest, or work routines. So these stories transmit moral discipline, ecological knowledge, kinship obligations, gender expectations, survival ethics. Unlike ritual performance, domestic storytelling allows flexibility. The narrator adapts emphasis depending on context. Through repetition, tone, and interpretation, women shape how listeners understand obedience, labor, sexuality, and resilience. This space, through private, functions as an informal governance structure. It regulates conduct not through law but through narrative consequence. Domesticity, therefore, is not passive, it is epistemically productive. Motives of gendered knowledge. So let me briefly discuss 5 key motives that structure gendered knowledge in Santhal folktales. One is obedience. Obedience is frequently rewarded while disobedience leads to suffering. On the surface, this appears to reinforce patriarchy. However, many tales reveal that obedience is strategic rather than submissive. Women comply outwardly while internally navigating injustice through intelligence and patience. So thus obedience becomes tactical endurance. 2 is labor and ecological wisdom. Women in these folktales are deeply connected to agricultural and forest labor. So they understand crop cycles, medicinal herbs, and seasonal rhythms. Labor becomes knowledge practice. Through storytelling, ecological literacy is transmitted intergenerationally, embedding sustainability within narrative form. 3, sexuality and social regulation. Many tales regulate sexuality through cautionary narratives. They warn against illicit relationships and emphasize fidelity. However, some stories also depict women choosing partners through discernment and intelligence. Sexuality is therefore both regulated and negotiated. For motherhood as epistemic authority, maternal figures frequently offer advice that ultimately proves correct, even when initially ignored by male characters. Motherhood in these tales transcends biological function, it becomes moral authority. The mother interprets dreams, anticipates danger, and provides ethical clarity. Through storytelling, maternal knowledge becomes institutionalized. 5. Resistance and negotiation. Perhaps most significant are moments of subtle resistance. Women rarely rebel openly. Instead, they negotiate. They use wit, clever speech, and patience to restore justice. This resistance is coded, symbolic, and restorative rather than destructive. Storytelling thus becomes a safe space for critique. Between reinforcement and subversion, Santhal folktales neither fully reinforce nor completely dismantle patriarchy. They inhabit a liminal zone. On one level, they validate social order. On the other hand, they preserve alternative moral perspectives. Public ritual spaces amplify masculine authority. Domestic storytelling sustains ethical interpretation, and the drumbeat gathers the community. The story shapes its conscience. Indigenous knowledge systems. By situating Santhal women's folktales within Indian knowledge systems, we recognize them as legitimate epistemologies. Too often, indigenous oral traditions are dismissed as informal or pre-modern, yet these stories encode ecological ethics, social governance, gender negotiation, intergenerational pedagogy. So, domestic storytelling is not casual entertainment, it is a curriculum. It ensures continuity, adaptation, and survival. To conclude, Santal women's folktales operate as living archives of gender knowledge. Between drumbeats and domesticity lies a dynamic epistemic field. The drumbeat symbolizes visible authority, domestic storytelling sustains invisible yet enduring power. Women's narrative traditions perpetuate norms but also reinterpret them, and they encode discipline and dissent, conformity and creativity, endurance and agency. In kitchens, courtyards, and evening gatherings, knowledge is whispered, repeated, reshaped, and remembered. And it is in these quiet narrative spaces that culture is not merely preserved but continually reimagined. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. I now open the floor for questions and comments. For the same, we had one question from the first presentation.
Are they there or are they there? But most of the presentations were very good in this sessions. It's a very nice way to begin with. All of them are good. There's no doubt about it. Only thing is we have taken a lot of time extra, and Mallika and Swastik was so generous to give a lot of time, cutting across their lunch and all.
So those presentation was so interesting, so insightful that I couldn't stop. That was the only reason. Other than that,
I do realize. I also have to have a quick lunch and come back for the next. Anyway, questions are welcome.
Is Rajshree here?
We're here.
Yes,
Right,
both of
ma'am.
us are here. Absolutely.
Right, ma'am. So there was a question for you. I'll just speak that out loud. This was by Kritika Trivedi. Can you elaborate more on how landscape is active and not passive? Meanwhile, I request the others to
Hello.
please formulate their questions. Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yes. Rimika, ma'am, should I take this one?
Absolutely, yes. Please go ahead.
Okay, so as we talked about in my presentation as well, that nature is not inactive because it is a co-actor. It is present in the sovereignty of the place. So if we are looking at KGD trees, just for example, it's not just a place of worship. In fact, it's a active oath-taking site. It's the site of serpent habitats, for example. It is the site of promises. It is the site also where a lot of folklore intersects with each other. So it is not a passive space because the Rajasthani folklore treats earth, soil, um, habitats, Purans as they're treated as possessing memory, that spirits dwell there and the land itself remembers the sacrificial retains of the power that are there. It is grammatically active in the storytelling because it's not just in the storytelling, it is doing something within the story. So it's continuously a larger part of the narrative. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Suraya wants to say something. Are there any more questions?
As we wait, Swastik, I was wondering that you had nothing to say after Rajshree presented her paper, because you were very nicely sort of, folding the insights from each paper after the presentation. So we had a bit of a FOMO moment there. We thought, well, we got nothing from you in terms of, what you could make of the paper. So anything that you have to say as an observer, moderator?
Ma'am, I was just busy with understanding that who am I supposed to call next, because there was some confusion regarding
All
the
right.
list. So really
Right.
sorry about that, but
No, that's
I
all right.
genuinely enjoyed whatever I could listen,
I'm glad.
whatever I
I'm
could
glad. Thank
listen
you.
and
Sure,
comprehend.
sure. Of course, of course. No, conducting an online session, I think, is far more challenging than, doing it in person with the
Right.
people sitting right in front of you, across you. Sure. Right. You said
Right,
there was
ma'am.
one more
Thank
from
you.
Suraya. Is she around?
Suraya, are you there?
Mm-hmm. So Suraya is not around? Not. Mhm.
All right. So if there are more questions, we'll come back to them. Meanwhile, I had a question for Just Cover Singh, if Sir is here.
Yeah, I am here. Yeah.
Hi. So since I said, I also mentioned that I had seen the video that you had taken as the text for your presentation. So my question was that how does Bhatia's documentary, that lens, act as a mediator? So does his perspective as an outsider help us or hinder us? How does that work?
Can you repeat the question once, please?
Right. So my question is that since this was a lens, an outsider lens, it was from Bhatia, Sandesh Bhatia, right? The documentary that you referenced. So my question is that how does his perspective as an outsider help us understand the Londa Nach? Does it really help us or understand it better, or does it hinder our understanding in certain ways?
Right. Okay. Uh, um, so since, as you correctly mentioned, that Bhatia is an outsider, I think his perspective allows the practice to be documented with some curiosity and distance both at the same time, right? So rather than speaking for the performer, uh, documentary also enables Kumar, Udit Singh, or Udita to narrate their own lived experience. So not being theoretical, it's more about lived experience, which helps foreground that subaltern voice of Uday or Udita, which within the performance tradition as well. So again, uh, it is playing a crucial role, that is translating a localized folk practice to a wider digital audience as well. Through questions, different camera framings, and narrative structure, he kind of contextualizes the London Arch for viewers who may not be familiar with the cultural dynamics of it, right? So I think it is not merely a record of a performance, but a mediating cultural text that can, I think, that has bridged the gap between folk tradition and contemporary digital spectatorship. So I think what Sundish Bhatia has done, he has played the role of a bridge, right, of connecting folk to the newer audience, to newer audience. Yeah, that is what I believe.
The way the text is being analyzed as even though it's a video, the way it has been analyzed as a phenomenon is a very interesting thing. It opens up a possibility because YouTube is the biggest archive now, and visual texts are more than the oral text or whatever it is. So it is opening up a possibility, and I really like that. In fact, I didn't comment it, but it's a good approach. It has possibility to look at such kind of text by folklorists, literature people. In fact, I couldn't hear Rimika's and all paper fully, but the way they use that word numinous, that's absolutely marvelous. Nature narrative and numinous. This is beautiful way of phrasing it, So
Thank you,
I
sir. Thanks
couldn't
so
hear
much.
because I
Yeah.
was like, wanted to leave one of our guests outside. So I missed a part of your
Right.
paper because it's the
Yeah,
first
we
in that,
understand, sir.
just out
I
of that.
know.
Yeah, that's what the thing.
Yeah,
But
sometimes you
I
bear the
really
brunt
like
of
the
being,
way.
right in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Thank
really
you, sir.
appreciate
Most
these
kind.
guys,
Thank
stay
you.
back cutting across the lunch. I do understand. We will definitely get back to you people. And it was a wonderful paper.
Right.
Srinandana's
Thank
paper
you.
was good, and yeah, thank you
So,
so much. Mallika's paper was good.
shall we start now? Like, shall I give some
Yeah, I
comments?
think we will
Yeah.
have a break, and yeah, Mallika, we'll break and prepare for the next session.
So, what about the comments? Like, I have to give it or I have to wait?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's
There's
start.
somebody's hand is there. Yati, I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, I also wanted to ask question to Jaswankar Singh because I really liked his approach on that London Arch. So I'm not very much interested in folklore, so I don't have a question related to folklore. I'm actually he actually talked about the theatrical performance as well. So there's a concept called character armor by Wilhelm Rich. He talks about that what happens is sometimes actors actually embraces those characters and become and actually in psychological way they actually become that character to protect themselves from social anxiety and reality. Although the character armor is a very psychological phenomena, he talks about something else. But in cinema and theater, the actors actually use this concept to actually become that character to enhance their performance, which actually happened with Ranveer Singh as well. That he actually used to see his character of Genghis Khan and all. So it actually happens. So in Londa Nach, you said that मेरे में the character said that मेरे में औरत की आत्मा आ जाती है. So can we say that if we analyze it in a theatrical way, in a cinematic way, sometimes actors gets the burden of that character and actually tries to hide themselves by actually performing in that character on the stage and hiding its true self, and sometimes it becomes a burden on themselves as well. That's my question if I analyze it psychological way.
Yeah. For sure, I think you are on the correct line. I think actors like Nawazuddin Siddiqui also, when performing such violent roles, they admit that such violent thoughts come to them frequently, even after the shooting is done, right? So this embodiment, what one can call of the actor of the character by the actor. Even theorists, if you even can move beyond Butler and like Vicky Kirby also in Corpus Delicti, her work, there's a book called Telling Flesh. She says that bodies also have their own agency. So how bodies also react to such experiences, right? And also the internalization of the act, uh, right? So I think you talk about William Rick also, how the character armor that allows a person to cope with social pressures and internal tensions as well. So in performance traditions also, as you rightly said, actors can temporarily inhabit other identities, which I also believe in, and they have a flux, right? So there's a fluid interplay of sorts.
Thank you.
Right. Suraya, do you have a question?
Yes. First of all, Jaswankar Singh, your paper was amazing. I loved it. I was like quite engaged throughout. Thank you for that. Add this like adding to what Yati said. That here he has talked about the psychological realm of acting and psychological realm of theatrical performances. Shouldn't we call in modern times? Should we call this method acting? Like, for example, that you have said that Uday or Udita, he enters into like in him. A woman enters into him. Usually in dramatical terms, people do use actors do use this technique of method acting to enter into some other character, and there are side effects of it. What do you want to say about it? Like, is it it could be like, it could be a okay, you talked about it could be a different lens where you can see his transition towards from men to women, but on surface level it looks like just in method acting.
Yeah, thank you, Surya. So, while it may appear similar to method acting, I would argue that what we see in Kumar Uday Singh's transformation from Uday to Udita, I think it goes beyond method acting. So, method acting usually involves the performer drawing upon personal memories or emotions, right, to make a character more believable on stage. So the actor remains aware, so that he remains aware or she remains aware that is a temporary artistic technique. So, but I think it goes beyond temporariness in this case. In Londa Nauch and in this case, however, the transformation seems closer to what one might call a ritualized embodiment, right? So that act has been repeated again and again to recall Butler a stylized repetition of act rather than a simple performative technique, right? When he says that mere andar ek aurat aa jati hai, he is not emotionally recalling femininity, but it describing the phenomenological shift in identity, his own identity, right? So the dressing process, the makeup, the sari, the gestures. So these acts almost like ritual markers. So again, ritual being the keyword here. The repetitive aspect of it, which is not seen in method acting, according to me. It is a realization that it's a temporary process for the movie or for the art form. But in Kumar Uday's case, it is more of a ritual. That is what I believe.
Thank you so much for your response.
So I believe we'll have one more question, the last question from Kritika.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, my question was for Madhavi. Is she here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, hi Madhvi, your presentation was wonderful. I had a question, just a general question. Like in your presentation, we saw how you had written from from text to body, and how you talked about somatic epistemology. So I want to ask you, what do you think about like now we have, like Sir said, YouTube is a very big repository or an archive for performance, especially for oral performance. So how do you think somatic experience is changing for the viewers and the performers? For example, like if body is an archive for the performer, for the viewer also the body is an archive. But how we view it in a live performance and how we view it from a studio performance which has been recorded, how do you think the concept of archive changes and the somatic experience changes?
Actually, what I felt is that the performer's experience is always characterized by the transformation of the physical body into a living archive of cultural knowledge. So, whatever we are learning in the from the Guru Shishya, direct from the Guru, we are actually practicing it. And what comes on the stage, actually, both the I think the performer goes into a trance, and I think that is what is conveyed to the audience, Sahridaya. Is that the answer to the question? I'm doubtful.
Yes, that does answer the question.
Yeah. So it's completely a trance is happening as a performer, because
Yes.
like when we take up a character. Me personally, when I do, I'm a Mohiniyattam dancer professionally. So when I take up a particular characters, like I have done a production on Yashodhara, actually questioning Lord Buddha, why did you leave me in the darkness of life? So that time, before the program itself, I take some moment to myself, and after the performance, it takes a lot of time to come out of it. So that movement is something which cannot be explained. It's actually experienced.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you for the
Thank
answer.
you.
Okay,
Thank you,
Swastik,
Madhavi.
we'll wind it up.
All
Swastik.
right, sir. Sir, I'll just invite Dr. Tosha for her concluding remarks. Dr. Tosha, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Just give me 5 minutes. I will conclude it very fast today. Okay.
Sure.
So these all of the presentations were very diversified. Like they had diversified topics, themes, yet unified in the manner that it created a whole pool of knowledge. Like it was very intellectual, full of intellect, yet many colors were there, many hues were there. Yes. So I wanted to give inputs in every presentation, and I found all of the presentations very influential. It is the right word, in fact. They have a great impact. They will have a great impact in future also. So I will give in very short a comment per presenter that I find appropriate. Fine. So it's up to you to include that or not, but this is my perspective. Let's start with Rajshree. Okay, Rajshree, your paper was very good, beta. Okay, Rajshree, your paper was very good. The only thing that I found could be added is that, so you talked about nature, right? Is Rajshree here? Is Rajshree here? Okay. So Rajshree is not here. So let's talk about the
I'm
day.
here, ma'am. I'm here. So I'll note it. I'm here, ma'am. So I'll note it down for her.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, I just wanted to add that nature is a very vast concept, right? So we can't restrict nature to one definition. It has multi-varied definition across whole world. It could be wilderness for some. It could be peace for some. It could be a kind of devotion. Define some people define nature. So when we talk about nature in the very beginning, I think it's a bit apt to define in what perspective are you visualizing nature, right? Otherwise, this paper was very good. It is just one of my input that I wanted to give. Other than that, it was including this also. It was very good, awesome paper. Let's move to Amrita Mishra.
No, thank you, ma'am. Thanks for this
Amrita,
insight.
are you there?
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Amrita, are you there? I think she is not there. No, she is not here.
Yes,
Yet I will
ma'am.
give
Yes,
my
ma'am.
input
I'm
so that
here.
You can go on, ma'am. You can
okay.
go on.
So
It's
Amrita
recorded. No?
talked about Durga-pat. So Durga-pat, I wasn't able to make sense of what does Durga-pat mean, because I myself is not from that place. So I wish you could have defined in words what Durga-pat is like. What is pat? Is it what kind of folk form? What kind of folk
It is
genre is it?
painting, ma'am.
So
It is a form
yes,
of
yes,
folk painting.
after that you defined, yeah. After that,
Yes.
when I continued watching your presentation, then I was to make is that what was it? But I wish you would have defined it beforehand what Durga Pat was. What is that? What is the meaning? And regarding the pictorial form, did you have any opportunity to visit that place?
Yes,
Those
ma'am. I
places.
have done field work there.
Okay. So did you interview some people of like rural people or the uh, pictorial whoever is the creator
Sorry,
of
ma'am,
those
I didn't
pictures?
get your question.
Were you able to visit the suburbs and talk to the picture creators, the
Yes, I
artists?
did. The
Okay.
artisan community. I have talked with the artisan community and the specific artist who has drawn these like those pots that I have shown you all.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, yes, it was a good paper, Amrita.
Yes,
Apart
thank
from
you, ma'am.
that, let's move to another, just cover thing. So
Yes,
just
ma'am.
over
I'm here. Yes,
paper
ma'am.
was
Yes.
on Londa Nach. I don't know whether I found it, I was able to comprehend it in a better manner or not. You talked about Londa Nach being, uh, getting famous, being popularized by those people who come out of Bihar and when they go to other places such as Bengal, right? Did you
Ma'am,
talk?
that was a sociological history of Londoners, the origins of it, that they could not get work in their own place. So they had to move to urban cities, and there, because the female performances were not allowed, they had to take upon the role of a female.
But as far as I know, Londa Nach is also it was also performed in Bihar, especially in Holi. This Bideshia tradition and Londa Nach is still it has been performed a few years back.
Right, ma'am. Right. Okay.
Okay. So just I'm not sure, but yes, this is what I know as far as
Ma'am, I'll look upon this. Thank you,
please
ma'am. Yes.
yes. Other than that, we have Madhavi. Madhavi. Madhavi, your paper was awesome. Very good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Like I enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to you a lot.
Thank
And
you.
being a person from a classical dance background, I could understand a lot of it. Like yes, it was a very enjoyable moment for me.
Thank
Your
you.
paper presentation.
Thank you.
If you're talking about mudras, hast mudras in Bharatanatyam, and I think it must be there in Mohiniyattam also, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So, do you have any probability of analyzing and unraveling the connotations of hast mudras?
Yeah, we can actually work on it.
Work on it, right? So you
Sure.
can expand somewhat, like if you want, you can
Yeah,
expand
we'll
on this.
surely try, ma'am.
So,
Surely.
like you have different kind of hast mudras. What do they connote, and how different kind of natural elements, flora and fauna, are shown through that?
Yeah, okay, I'll try
Yeah.
that. I'll try it.
Yes, your paper was good.
Thank
And
you.
then we have Shagun Chaudhary.
Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm present here.
Shagun, you were very articulate. Like I enjoyed your paper. You were very articulate. You talked about everything in a very good manner. Like Sir said, I hope some kind of analysis, analytical background, could be there. Okay. So two things that I want to add is that what about the women in that village? What about the condition of women in that village? What is your
Ma'am,
perspective on that?
the women in Malana, they are at par with the men. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then you talked about how Malana villagers, they refrain from touching the hands of outsider, right?
Yes, yes,
They don't
yes, yes.
want any outsider. So did you have the opportunity to study the impact of COVID in that village? During COVID times, it was very keen. Many people we did use to touch handshake, anything like that. So what was the impact of COVID in that village?
Ma'am, during the COVID, the village was on entire lockdown, like the country itself. Yeah.
It was there, but I just want to see that was it impacted lot like cities, or was it impacted a bit lesser than the cities?
I'll look into it. I'll visit Milana once again and
Okay, okay.
perhaps, yeah.
Then we have Srinanda.
Yes,
Srinanda,
yes, ma'am.
your
I'm
paper was about ballads. True? You talked about ballads. You spoke about ballads a bit, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So it was again a very different kind of unique kind of observation that you made, and it was very apt also. But what I want to add is that could there be a comparative study of ballad in the manner in which they evolved? Like when they evolved through the due course of the evolution, what were the variations while they were evolving? So ballads was what they sing to oral. Then it could be written. Then it could be through the means of digital media. So what were the differences while it traveled from one medium to another? Right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I hope one of your chapter or one of your papers, the research could be, if it will be good. Otherwise, it's okay.
Ma'am, actually, I'm looking into it, ma'am.
Yes, because this is a very interesting one. This is a very interesting topic. So you could just unravel these things also, Srinanda. Then we have Shabnam Khatun. Shabnam talked about Santali folklores with special difference to gender roles. So I just wish to convey that there could be comparative study again of role reversals, like how do women they reverse the role through the means of folklore, and then they dominate. Like we know that men are very dominating sections. If you talk about patriarchy, feminism, it's a commonplace remark nowadays, whether it is true or not. But only thing that I want to add is there a probability that in several folklore, especially in Bihar, especially if you talk about Londa Raj for this that case, role reversal is there. If you talk about some kind of acts in there's a word called Dehkan. Dehkan is again a provocative song that is sung in villages of Bihar after when marriage is taking place. So in that role reversal is also there. They enact different genders. Women become men, that kind of thing. So while they are enacting, right? So perhaps these kind of things could be discussed. So all of papers were very much diversified, very much colorful, full of vibrant hues. I don't have words for that, just that because I was invited here. That's because I'm adding my comments, I'm adding my inputs for all of you. Uh, I think that's fine. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insights. It has been an absolute privilege to witness how these diverse narrative function as living archives of identity. This session truly has proven that folklore is not a relic of the past, but a dynamic force that is constantly evolving and redefining our understanding of sovereignty and devotion. To conclude, I would like to extend a special and heartfelt thanks to our session chair, Dr. Mallika Tosha. Beyond her academic accolades, Dr. Tosha has brought a unique ability to bridge the vibrant perspectives presented today. We are grateful for her guidance. On behalf of the YFC conference, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to our speakers for their profound insights and to our audience for such an engaging dialogue. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks to you.